What's good, YouTube? Today we have another top 10 for February format coming at you. And I know a lot of you were probably curious where Wind Witches were going to end up on my list, but it's only going to be honorable mentions because the Eidolons don't come out until February 24th. So I can't truly call Wind Witch Eidolon Artifact part of the February format, in my opinion, when it only hits shelves on the 24th. Wind Witches on their own can create a really strong, powerful Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon that can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, but we'll see Kaijus very, very prevalent in the format, although a lot of people may choose Field Wipes over said Kaiju, so it may just be that Wind Witches could be kind of a dark horse, but I don't think without the Eidolons that we'll see them be doing as much, especially towards Seattle. I think a lot of people will be choosing Zodiacs and these other decks that I will mention. The next deck in my honorable mention is Spyrals, mainly because it's a good deck on its own already. Not quite there yet, but they're going to double its monster support in rate, which hits shelves in February. So right before YCS Seattle, it could be kind of a pickup with the deck that could just explode. You know, it only takes a couple cards to break an entire deck in. They could just need 2 cards and just be there. They're already getting like 9th at regionals, barely missing that top 8 cut. So I know Team Innovation Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been working a lot with them too. We'll have it on Casual Friday one day for you, and a lot of people want to see it put in work. So it's in my honorable mentions, not the top 10 here, because it just hasn't shown what the cards do yet. It could not even be an honorable mention by the time, you know, the cards are announced, or it could just break into the top 10. And the last honorable mention is the Blue Eyes deck. I feel like this deck just fails in comparison to the rest of the top 10, except for maybe number 10, but number 10 proved itself in YCS Sydney, and I think we'll have an even better Zodiac matchup. With so many Field Wipes being run, you're kind of relying on not being destroyed or having that spell in your graveyard that stops Return of the Dragon Lords. I don't think that it's just there. I think that it's kind of fallen off in terms of what it can do versus the rest of the format. So, number 10, Fire King Kozmo. Yes, I'm putting this over the Blue Eyes deck. It proved itself at YCS Sydney. A lot of people said they just saw a brick deck. But here's the thing. Against Zodiacs, which rely on basically a Regeki break in Drancia, Fire King Kozmo have big untargetable ships in terms of what Zodiacs can do to them. So the Zodiac deck, I think, will have a very hard time with this, and this could be a dark horse depending on its tournament route. I think Infernoids have a better matchup against this, but still will have a hard time against it overall. But a lot of the other decks will be able to dispatch with the deck overall, although, you know, things like Orichalc can't really respond to being able to destroy a big ship also. So definitely an interesting kind of thing that could be in the meta, unaffected by Alkahest also. Pretty good against the Paleozoics overall, but that might actually be their struggle deck too, depending. They have a hard time answering the big ship without a trap directly affecting them. Next up is Toadally Awesome Heroes in number 9. All the way down to number 9. Why is that? The deck sets up pretty well. It has a very hard time going second, whereas a lot of decks are learning to be okay going second. Like, you're able to play through with Fire King Kozmo through cards like Dimensional Barrier, whereas Dimensional Barrier could very badly hurt this deck's chances of even being a thing, and we'll see 3 of those in mini decks, although it will have the advantage of having Dimensional Barrier also that could shut off its own cards in order to let the opponent start to have their turn. I think Heroes, Dark Lost still very good. Being able to set up with a Toad or potentially 2 Toads is still very, very strong, but you're relying so much on setting up. The next deck, ABC, I'm putting this all the way down to number 8. That's a really big fall, and here's why. So many more Field Wipes, so many more Kaijus are going to be played in this format, so many more Dimensional Barriers that will help shut this deck down. The Field Wipes are very, very important because Buster is kind of their main card. But I think we'll see more trap-heavy variants start to come into play. I think when Zodiacs see more than 2 back row, where Twin Twister doesn't just take care of the back row, they can have a very hard time as well. So they're relying on seeing, like, a Field Wipe alongside a Twin Twister or a back row removal against a deck like this, and if they don't see their Twin Twister, I think they'll have a very hard time against ABC still, but I think a lot of the rest of the decks just outshine it, such as Mermail Atlanteans. Mermail Atlanteans in the number 7 slot. I think the boards they still set up are super impressive, being able to Muon Glacier, hit the hand, take combo pieces away, and have 2 negates on field to be able to handle the first board wipe is insane. You'll have to have like a Kaiju board wipe on top of perhaps, you know, more than just that. And with cards in hand already gone if this went first, it's insane. And its ability to play back, not care too much about Dimensional Barrier, and be able to play through boards is pretty insane. But the next deck, I think, gets a huge boost from Lawn Mowing slash the grass is tastier on the other side. Minerva Sworn, it's always going to be kind of that surprise in our format, because Minerva is a very powerful card that people aren't that used to playing against. And with Lawn Mowing coming out, the deck gets a huge boost, very similar to Infernoids. Minerva Sworn is definitely the best rank 4 spam deck we still have in our format. I would say above ABC, above the water spam deck, but I really think that Minerva Sworn has a chance to kind of steal one still. We've seen it consistently in top 16, top 8s from YCSs, and doing the job that a rank 4 spam kind of deck does with the added power of Minerva. So now with Lawn Mowing, I do think we will see 60 card Light Sworn decks that resource the graveyard heavily. The next deck, still in my top 10, at number 5, a lot of people might think this is too high, is Paleozoics. Paleozoics will have an amazing Zodiac matchup. Like I said, any deck that's not that's able to set more than 2 can give them real problems on their startup. And then I believe they'll have one of the best resource games to back up. So Paleozoics, a lot of people when I first put it in my top 5, way back, I think in December, said it didn't deserve to be that high. And then it quickly proved itself, and I was able to watch this through our Zodiac tournament matches. So Paleozoic Frogs, I still think, will be giving a huge problem to the rest of the meta. They stand head-to-head with Metalfoes. You saw Billy heavily struggle against Joshua Schmidt's build. You saw that they've been able to head toe-to-toe with the rest of the decks already that were lower on this list. Although, like I said, Fire King Kozmo might give them a big surprise. Next up, the Metalfoes deck. The Metalfoes deck is still here all the way down to number 4, though, from my past 2 number 1s. Metalfoes, I think, will still be really good. You might be able to abuse the Zodiac engine within Metalfoes and find the right ratios, but I think that will take time. Metalfoes are definitely still going to be played, though. I think their setups will still be pretty zany compared to the rest, even with the field wipes, because they do float with Mithrilium and counter, and you're still able to make Alkahists after that. So I think we are still in for quite a ride with Metalfoes. You should all know what they do by now. They're a pendulum-based deck that doesn't just die to Dimensional Barrier, because they can still fuse, they can still make boards through it, and abuse Dimensional Barrier as well, which will be very prevalent in this upcoming format. But this next deck, I'm sure you're surprised why you haven't seen it now. Very, very high on my top 10. And number 3 is Full Power DDDs. The OCG didn't have Full Power DDD versus Zodiac. They hit Lamia and they hit Slime. And I think the Full Power DDDs, after watching so much more of it, are one of the best turn 1 boards. Even with a Kaiju, typically they're able to span out 2 negate cards. So they're able to stop the field wipe and stop a card. And I think that's very powerful. And with the addition of the maximum board being like Crystal Wing, Harbinger, and Siegfried, you're able to stop a monster effect as well. And then they're able to abuse Dimensional Barrier. So if you can get a back row with the negate, it's very powerful. But the main reason I think this will take a lot of people by surprise is Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend was originally meant for the mirror match in a sense, and even though there's going to be more board wipes, they prevent the Kaijus, which a lot of people will be playing. You can't activate the Kaiju board wipe while he's out. And then, on top of all of that, there's only 1 Darkhold, 2 Regekis that are going to be trying to answer him. He's not affected by Dimensional Barrier, which will see high play. And you can go ahead and stop your turn halfway, so you can make 1 negate alongside your Vanity's Fiend to help protect him. So you'll have to force the negate without using your board wipe, which they're probably not going to go ahead and use their negate on anything else besides a board wipe unless it threatens your Vanity's Fiend. So Vanity's Fiend always comes in and steals formats. I think it's really good against the next two decks as well. But I think these next two decks will see a lot of play, and the next one I personally think will win Seattle, but I could be completely wrong. Lawn Mowing Infernoids. People are still calling it Lawn Mowing even though its grass is tastier on the other side. There's just no way for that to roll gracefully off the tongue like Lawn Mowing. But Lawn Mowing Infernoids get the biggest boost. They have such a high ceiling in terms of what they can do and where they can go, but I also think there's a kind of low cap there in terms of you can resource so much from your graveyard, and you play, similar to Minerva's Horn, one of the most powerful cards in the game, Fairy Tale Snow. You're able to play from your graveyard on your opponent's turn and shut them down, and that's very, very powerful against Zodiacs. But I also think it's very powerful against almost every other deck besides perhaps Metalfoes, where Kieran's unaffected and you have your fusion ability with the quick play fusion. So I still say that Infernoids are going to probably be one of the best decks because you have spell wipes, you have trap wipes, you have monster wipes, you have so much going on in this deck, and its resource game is so insane thanks to Lawn Mowing that I think it will definitely be the deck to steal Seattle. I think people are already used to it and its combos, and have got it down. Not that Zodiac combos are that hard. I think that people that are very practiced with this deck, such as maybe Eric Christensen, will come in and take Seattle with the deck. But the #1 deck overall for February format, I think is undeniable. Everybody's highly anticipating it. Is Zodiac/Junishishi, and it's mainly just an engine overall, but people still play the deck pure or with Kaijus. But its ability to board wipe with Kaijus, its ability to go off and do consistent damage, its ability to do so much with just one card is so insane. So I think we'll see so many Zodiac variants /Junishishi variants. Junishishi is what it's called in the OCG. Will be taking over completely. But again, I think we'll still see a lot more play from other decks, but I think we'll see the Zodiac engine so prevalent in the top 16 of YCS Seattle that it will be undeniable. It might be close to the emergency ban list situation presented in Bosch in a similar time in February, heading towards March. So let's see what happens with this deck, but I think we'll get more play than just one event. I think Konami learned from that. But overall, what do you guys think of this top 10? Did something deserve to be higher? Did I hit it on the head? Do you think Fire King Kozmo will be a real threat? Because I've been hearing whispers of it, and I think it really is there. I think it really does have the ability with its power and slight bit of consistency. It does have consistency issues, but I think it's just proved itself in the current format at YCS Sydney, and overall, I think this top 10 is pretty accurate. I don't think I missed too much, and I know a lot of you wanted to see Wind Witches up there, but we'll have that in March. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, give this a like if you enjoyed the discussion point of it, and go ahead and tell me your differences in the comment section below.